All right. So the key to progressing in CrossFit and getting better and getting the most out of what you're doing, effective use of your time, is to do the right workout. Right. One of the reasons we went away from RX is because it not only isn't helpful in scaling down, but it gives you this idea that the goal of the workout is to do it the way it's prescribed, no matter whether that changes the workout for me. There's workouts you see in the CrossFit Games that I could use that weight, and if it was a competition, maybe I would. But if I did that in my training, I'm not going to get the proper workout benefit, right? It's just going to be a strength piece for me. And there's other workouts where if I used somebody else's weight, it'd be way too light and I wouldn't get the straight benefit for it, right? I'd get something completely different. It's not good, it's not bad, but you're not getting the effect of the program properly. So I want to sit down and go over the notes that we put up now every day for the workouts. I simplified it as much as I possibly can so that you can start to understand what you're doing, right? Now, all right, so let's talk, how do I pick a weight for a barbell, right? Because that's probably the most challenging of all, because dumbbells, kettlebells, even most gymnastics movements, box jumps, whatever, there's a couple of levels people generally understand. They choose one of those two. But let's start with barbells because there's usually a lot of options there, right? When I write a program and I put this on the notes, right, I intend for the barbell to be anywhere from very light, meaning you could do 30, 40 reps with that, right? Which for a lot of people, that's just an empty barbell, or very heavy, right? So it runs the gamut and it basically breaks down into from very light to moderately light to moderate to moderately heavy to super heavy. And so figuring out what weight to use on which workout requires that you, one, pay attention and understand what the point of the workout is. And number two, understand for you what moderately heavy means, say. Now that's hard, right? Because that's a lot of like numbers to memorize about a lot of different movements, because that's one of the challenges of CrossFit, that we use a ton of different movements. So the easiest way for me to do it is to understand and basically have a frame of reference and say, what's light, what's medium, what's heavy for whatever movement it is that day, right? Light just means I can do 20 plus reps with that, probably 25 reps, right? Which is lower than what a lot of people think it is, because we tested it one time. Medium, right, would be something I can do about 15 reps of or more, with a certain movement. And then heavy is something I can do about 5 to 10 reps. The higher your top end is, the bigger the spread is for you. But essentially, if you know those three, we can kind of reverse engineer all the rest of it. So that's all you need to know. Now let's talk, how do I reverse engineer it? Well, one, right, we figure out where we need to be. So if the weight, say, is supposed to be moderately heavy for the day, and I know what moderate is, and I add that to whatever heavy is, and then I divide by 2, so I take the average of those two, I get a number that's right about where I need to be, right? So if that number, say, comes out at 125 and 120 and 115 is an option, I'll probably just do 115 because that's close enough, right? The big key here is it needs to be about in the middle of those two. It doesn't need to be exact, right? But if I understand that it's in the middle of those two, I'll probably be pretty close to the intended stimulus. For very light, generally I take that same difference between each level, between light and moderate, and just subtract it, right? So if there's like a 30-pound difference and I'm supposed to do something that's light, I take about 30 pounds off and pick that level, right? So let's say like 95 maybe is light for me, but like 155 is moderate. I kind of take half of the distance between those, and then I end up at something like 65, which would be very, very light for me, which would be just about right. Now I may play with that, and it may be too light sometimes, too heavy others, but that's about how you can do it. Same thing with super heavy or very heavy, right? The important thing to remember about both of those is they definitely need to be, in the case of very light, lower than your lightweight. And in the case of heavy, it needs to be heavy, super heavy. It needs to be heavier than your heavyweight. It's just that simple. So if I know those three things, right, and I basically use the same numbers, like I said, for light, medium, heavy, for front squats, thrusters, press, push press, like all of those. I have one for power cleans, and then I have one for deadlifts, essentially, is how we do that all. So it's not that much to know. And if you keep a log of it, you'll be able to do it. Now, as we progress, that should move up with us. But at any given time, you should have a pretty good idea where that's at.